Hello everyone, I'm Anja Mahir from Srinivas Ramanujan Institute of Technology and I'm studying in computer science, science and engineering, the specialization of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the subject name is environmental science and the subject code is 23NCNC01 and my topic is this is a case study of nuclear hazards in a disaster zone. And this is the introduction of nuclear hazards. Nuclear hazards pose a significant risk in disaster zones, particularly after events like earthquakes or tsunamis. The release of radioactive materials can lead to long-term health and environmental issues. Understanding these hazards is crucial for effective emergency response and public safety. And here we can see the picture of this nuclear hazards. Overview of nuclear energy. Nuclear power is a significant source of energy providing about 10% of the world's electricity. It operates through nuclear fission which generates heat to produce steam and drive turbines. While efficient nuclear energy also poses risk, particularly in the event of reactor failures. Historical context. Major nuclear disasters such as Chernobyl and Fukushima have demonstrated the challenges of managing nuclear hazards. These incidents highlights the importance of partials and the response strategies in the disaster zones. Lesson learned from the past disasters inform current safety protocols and risk assessments. And here we can see the pictures of the Fukushima were done in 2011 and it is the another one was occurred in 1986. Types of nuclear hazards. There are two primary types of nuclear hazards, radiological and nuclear explosion related. Radiological hazards involve the release of radioactive materials into the environment. Nuclear explosions can cause immediate deviations and long-lasting radiation contamination. The disaster zone dynamics. Disaster zones are often chaotic, complicating responses efforts to nuclear hazards. Infrastructure damage can hinder evacuation and medical assistance, increasing risk to public safety. The presence of nuclear facilities in these areas requires a specific attention from emergency management teams. Health impacts of nuclear hazards. Exposure to radiation can lead to acute health effects including radiation sickness and death. Long-term exposure increases the risk of cancer and genetic mutations in affected populations. Vulnerable groups such as children and pregnant women are at great risk of severe health consequences. Environmental consequences. Nuclear hazards can result in widespread contamination of land, water, and air. Radioactive isotopes can persist in the environment for decades, affecting ecosystems and agriculture. Remediation efforts are often complex and expensive, requiring long-term commitment and resources. Emergency preparedness and responses. Effective emergency responses plans are critical in mitigating the impacts of nuclear hazards. Training and drills for first responders can enhance readiness and coordination during a crisis. Public education on evacuation procedures and safety measures that can save lives in disaster situations. Case study. Fukushima Daiichi. Fukushima disaster in 2011 serves a key example of nuclear hazards in a disaster zone. A earthquake and tsunami led to reactor meltdowns and significant radioactive releases. The event promoted global realization of nuclear safety standards and disaster preparedness. Lesson learned. Post-Fukushima assistance emphasized the need of robust safety measures in nuclear facilities. Collaboration among government agencies, scientists, and the public is vital for effective risk management. Continuous monitoring and research are necessary to improve response strategies for future incidents. Here we can see the mitigation, preference, responses, and recovery. In mitigation, reducing or eliminating the impact from the potential hazards. In preparedness, building the capacity and capability of the organization to manage the impacts. In responses, acting to stop ongoing negative effects. Recovery, work to restore the essential functions and returning the organization to a new normal. Policy and regulation, governments must establish the enforce stringent regulations on nuclear facilities and emergency preparedness. International cooperation is essential for sharing best practices and lessons learned from the nuclear incidents. Public trust in nuclear energy can be enhanced through transparency and effective communication strategies. Conclusion. Nuclear hazards in disaster zones requires a comprehensive understanding and proactive measures. Ongoing education and preparedness efforts can significantly mitigate risk and protect the public health. A collaborative approach among the stakeholders is necessary to address the complexity of nuclear safety effectively. The additional case study of contamination in the aftermath of Fukushima disaster. Introduction to the Fukushima disaster. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster occurred on March 11, 2011, following a massive earthquake and tsunami. It resulted in the release of significant amount of radioactive materials into the environment. Understanding the contamination is crucial for assessing long-term health and environmental impacts. And this is here you can see the photo of the Fukushima nuclear hazard which have held in March 11, 2011. Immediate impact of the disaster. The explosion and reactor meltdowns released iodine-131, cesium-137 and the strontium-90 into the air and ocean. Contaminated water was discharged into the Pacific Ocean, affecting marine life and coastal ecosystems. Evacuations were ordered in a 20-kilometer radius, displacing thousands of residents from their homes. Radioactive contaminants identified. Iodine-131 was particularly concerning due to its short half-life and the potential health risk to the thyroid. Cesium-137 and strontium-90 will longer half-life pose long-term contamination challenges. Plutonium was also detected, raising concerns about soil and groundwater contamination. Effects on marine life. Studies revealed evaluated level of radioactive isotopes in fish and other marine organisms. The potential for bioaccumulation raised concerns about the safety of seafood consumption. Long-term ecological impacts include altered species composition and disrupted food chain. And here you can see the which are the affected sea life were displayed here. Soil contamination and remediation efforts. Agricultural land in the Fukushima region was heavily contaminated, affecting logical farming practices. Remediation strategies include decontamination, soil removal, and the use of absorbent materials. Despite efforts, some areas remain unsustainable for agriculture and habitations. Health risk to local populations. Residents exposed to radiation face increased risk of thyroid cancer and other health issues. Comprehensive health monitoring programs were initiated to track long-term health effects. Psychological impacts, including anxiety and depression, were also significant among evacuations. And here we can see the picture of the radiation explored to this hazard. Policy responses and regulations. The disaster promoted a realization of nuclear energy policies both in Japan and globally. Stricter safety and regulation and the emergency responses plans were implemented in nuclear facilities. Public options shifted, leading to increased advocacy for renewable energy resources. Capability building, mitigation, pre-impact preparations, emergency responses, restoration, reconstructions, recovery, disaster management cycle. This is the disaster management cycle. Conclusion and future outlook. Ongoing monitoring and research are essential to understanding the full impact of the contamination. Lesson learned from the Fukushima will influence future nuclear energy policies and disaster preparedness. A focus on sustainable energy solution remains the critical to reducing reliance on nuclear power. Conclusion and outlook. Here we can see the Fukushima hazardous topic. Thank you and thank you for your attention and thank you for giving this opportunity.